It's Friday again, and that means we are on with our good friend and therapist, Austin Ellis. Welcome back to the podcast, Austin. Today we are
Thank
going to
you.
just dive in to boundaries and why you need to set boundaries in your marriage. You've heard Amy and I talk about this quite often, but Austin's going to get on a much better level than Amy and I can get into.
I was just thinking about this one a lot today, and if you're listening, like when this launched, Valentine's Day is tomorrow. And I was just thinking about, the whole love thing, and that if you really love your spouse, and not just your spouse, if you really love yourself, I think this whole topic of boundaries is really important. Because, like I always say, I think that we teach people how to treat us. I think we teach our marriage how it's going to look. I think that when we
Mhm.
communicate, like what is going to protect our marriage, how I feel about certain things because of like self-esteem, like this is how I expect to be treated. This is like, I just feel like all of that it's like love in action, right? Like, I just think boundaries are such an important part of love being in action. So I'm excited to dive into this. The last time we with you, we talked about, betrayal, whatever kind of betrayal that looks like in marriage, how we heal from that. Can you come back from that? Can you find passion again? And so we kind of talked about, hey, let's do a part two, on setting boundaries, why we need boundaries, what do boundaries look like, what boundaries should be set, and is it too late to set boundaries if you haven't done that in your relationship? So that's
Yeah, I'm
what I
excited to go into that. Um, let me start off by saying I had to do a lot of work on multiple levels around boundaries. One was genuinely I grew up kind of boundaryless, okay? Like we look at different kind of households where some are like really rigid and really structured, and others are very lenient and kind of no structure, right? And so I'm not saying my parents didn't have rules. I'm saying I didn't keep the bounds, right? I
Yeah.
yeah.
pushed the limits. And so in marriage it was really challenging for me initially to even understand like where's the limits of what helps us feel connected and close. And I also didn't know how to like even understand my own. I truly entered marriage with like, hey, whatever you want goes, thinking I was being really nice and loving, but what ended up happening is I would either suppress my feelings
Mhm.
or I'd get frustrated. And I see this happen with clients so often. And so in this discussion, one of the most helpful things I've had on a personal level and then as a therapist is when we think about boundaries, so often we think of like keeping people out. It's a fence, like don't cross the boundary,
Mhm.
right? One of the best ways that I've seen it work out, and we want to talk actionable things here, but the best way it plays out with a couple is to say, what are the things that we're keeping here that keep us close and connected?
Mhm.
That's as a couple, and that's personally. And so, right, some couples they cut out things, people, whatever that affects the marriage, the relationship. And so I think if we start the healthiest way, husband and wife come together and they go, what do we want here? We want ultimate intimacy. We want
Yeah.
connection. We want love. Okay, what are the things that affect one or both of us, right? And this is, for example, hey, when you go out and XYZ, it affects me this way, which affects us.
Mhm.
That new boundary might be, I don't want you to go out anymore. It's not to control you, it's to protect what we're trying to do here.
Mhm.
And you might have fun out there, which is a benefit for you. It's also a negative for you in the fact that it's a negative to me, which is a negative to us. When people can kind of connect those dots, it's not a control thing, it's actually a protection thing. Does that make sense? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Yeah.
And yeah, a lot of people will respond to our messages and say, "Oh, you're just trying to be controlling." But I think the key is if you're both in agreement, right? And I think so many couples have different upbringings and different experiences. So what might be something I would never do might be different for her, right? Like she might think, "Well, I didn't see anything wrong with that." A great example is we were talking to someone young before they're getting married, and we're like, yeah, you should probably stop following all those women on social media or all those girlfriends that you talk to. And he's like, well, why would I do that? We're
Mm-hmm.
like, well, you're getting married, right? And
Right.
and so he didn't even realize that that was like something that you probably shouldn't do. And so I think it's important too, where everyone feels differently. Unless you discuss what those boundaries are, you may not even know that you're crossing a line. And then all of a sudden your spouse is like, I cannot believe you did that. And you're like, what did I
I
do?
didn't even know,
Yeah,
right?
what did I do? I didn't even
Right.
know.
I hear that a lot actually. People often set boundaries to create safety, which we do need that. People often fail to create boundaries to keep them connected.
Mhm.
And so, so much of the therapeutic like conversation around boundaries is when there's already been damage. And the idea, oftentimes, truthfully, is, hey, I'm hurting, and now I'm going to set a boundary so you don't touch that hurt. I think what we try to do therapeutically is, okay, let's set some temporary things where that thing that used to be a good thing that now hurts,
Mhm.
it hurts because there's a wound. Let's heal the wound. Let's create a boundary to allow that to heal. But ultimately, if we set boundaries so nobody ever touches our wound, that means we're just like everybody's adjusting around us. That's that
Yeah.
eggshell concept. And so, real quickly, there's a book called The Untethered Soul, and it gives this really beautiful, like, kind of story. It's kind of silly a little bit, but the idea, and I won't go deep because you can see it on YouTube, but the idea is someone gets a thorn in their arm that's like kind of deep in the nerve, and it's painful when it's touched. And so they do all this stuff. They turn their whole life around so nothing can ever touch this. And they're like, hey, cool, this thorn doesn't hurt me anymore. I have
Mhm.
all these boundaries. Well, the thorn's still there. Everything's just not touching it. And then the author relates it to like our wounds in our relationships, our heart. He says, let's heal this so we can get close again and let people in instead of everybody stay out so I don't have to feel my wounds, right?
Mhm.
If a couple and wife will approach boundaries from a place of what do we need so we can come back instead of what do we need to keep each other out, then your boundaries will be successful.
Yeah.
You can stay protected and disconnected. It's not
Right.
it's not fantastic, right? So
Well, I like what you said, like, okay, with that example that you shared, you can't, we can't go out because it's affecting our marriage. So you can almost break that into, okay, how do we make this so that this exact situation has its own boundaries, right? Like, so in our marriage, it's like we're not alone with the opposite sex. Ever. That was just part of it. It works for us because
Yeah.
we don't have careers like that. That works for us, right? So it was like, yeah, that was common sense to us. If we were going to go out in a group and say I was with girls or whatever, like in your situation, you can go out with friends or whatever, but we're not going to do drinking because that alters your mind, or we're
mhm.
not going to be alone with opposites, like those kind of things. Like you can still go out, but we're going to set boundaries around certain things to make me feel respected, make me feel loved. And that's
Safe.
it's going to heal whatever's happened, right? Or create something from happening. I don't know. We always talk about like we put up doors on our locks, we lock our cars, we put up fences, we protect the stuff that we love. Like, why is marriage any different?
Right.
Like, that's what you do when you love something, right? You protect
Right.
it.
This is something that I see a lot of couples. It's like they try to hold on to two things that don't match, which is full independence and full connection.
Yeah.
So I'll hear things. Unfortunately, the language of boundaries gets used in a non-boundary way.
Mhm.
It's kind of like, hey, do whatever I want. Whatever I want. It's my boundary, right? And so people will say things like, my boundary is I have to have sex 5 times a week. That's not a boundary. That's a control thing, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So what we want to look at is one, what are you trying to protect? Trying to protect this bond, this connection. Ideally, that's over each individual. That's the nature of bringing yourself to another person. And so you may have something, Nick, I like how you said this, like you may have something that will never bother you. Like no big deal, right? But it does affect Amy. She matters. And so now it should matter to
Yeah.
you as her spouse. That's all of us, right? This is also really valuable if there's been, trauma in the marriage or what we call attachment wounds. It's like, or even if they predated the marriage, okay? Like, say I'm, married to a woman that had all this stuff,
Mhm.
and now we're in this marriage, and certain things I do that may not affect any other woman affect her.
Yep.
Because I love her, I go, okay, I'm not going to touch this. I do want to help it heal, but I'm going to be sensitive to this so you're not in more pain. especially if I create the wound, right? If I can go, okay, what do you need to feel safe? Let's heal this, but I'm not going to, you know, push past the bounds because that just creates more damage. And so, for any couple that's listening, you know, I think one of the first steps that couples come to, we talked about this in some episodes, is hey, here's where we are. Where do we want to go? How do we get there? Boundaries is part of the how we get there. I often think of this analogy that was told to me by another therapist that I saw years and years ago. He said, imagine you're traveling a trail, pioneer kind of days or whatever, right? And he said, and you stop at night and you're doing dinner, but you don't know what animals are out there. He said you bring the covered wagons around it, right? And you create this barrier where you're protected. And I remember his name was Jeff Ford, and he highlighted this thing. He's like, if you're in there together, you're not actually having boundaries against each other. You're having boundaries that keep everything that keeps you apart out. And so
Yeah.
when couples start to navigate this, we often flip it like the goal is safety and connection, not just safety.
Right.
How do we get the boundaries that create both? And then you're connected. You're not stay back, stay back, stay back. And
I
as
love
you
this.
know,
It's
that,
for both of you. Like a
yeah,
boundary is something that you're going to want to choose it, right? Because if you love your marriage and you love your spouse and you love yourself, you're going to
right.
want to protect that unity and that sacred bond of marriage. Like you're both going to want to do this.
Well, the place where people misinterpret this is for a husband to say, I'm going to set a boundary for you, or
Yeah,
I'm
let
going
me
to set a
hear.
Right,
boundary for you, almost like you can't do this. And
right.
as we're talking about boundaries, you need to recognize that it's something that you both sit down and agree to together. It's not
Right.
setting something for each other. It's like, hey, we both agree that we don't want this in our marriage. So we're not
Mhm.
going to watch rated R movies, right?
This
Or
might affect us in this way. What can we do
to
to
protect it.
protect that, right? I
Yeah,
love that you said that because I'm never going to tell him what he can or can't do. I'm like,
right.
hey, this is affecting me. How do you think that we can work together to set something to protect us? And he's going to be
Right.
like, well, here's some ideas. It's a teamwork thing.
Yep.
Right. It is ideally this shared effort where right, we go back to like, what do you want to build together? I want to build love and intimacy and friendship and playfulness. Let's look at all the things that can get in the way of that. We all have some of those, right? We all bring stuff to marriage, and truthfully, like every day, different things are impacting us. And so it's not uncommon for me to help couples navigate non-related marriage stuff like career.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it might not even be negative career stuff. It might be options. People don't often think of boundaries in this way, but I think this example will help. Like someone gets offered a new job and the family has to move, right?
Mm-hmm.
The boundary conversation is what is the boundary that protects our family? The move could be a great thing, and we do that. The boundary could be we stay, and great. The boundary is broken. Okay, it's maybe an unspoken boundary that they didn't know they had in place. The boundary is if one makes a decision that trumps the other,
Yep.
now you might go to a new place that's great. There's been a boundary violation, and the quote unquote great thing is a negative thing now.
Yep.
Right.
This is what people very rarely see is they talk, right? We get lost in intentions versus actual impact. And so we just have to be real with like, what's the impact? I talk to a lot of couples on this level of boundaries where I say, what was your intention with the boundary? And I'll say, like, no blame, no shame, no judgment. Let's just look. Did the
Mm-hmm.
boundary create the intention? No. It had a negative impact that was worse. Okay, let's change let's change the boundary
Yeah.
so it
Right.
brings the outcome, right?
Right.
And when couples can see that, part of my job is to help reduce some of the emotion, not to shove it away, but like let's process the emotion, let's understand the need here, and then let's make a decision not from the emotion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the goal is to solve the emotion, not to escape the emotion, right?
Right.
And so when we can help couples have that conversation, it's actually really cool because a boundary conversation should bring a couple together, not separate them. And it's successful when you both go, "Oh, this is going to help us have what we want.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm all in for these boundaries. Like,
Right,
great.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, and for the couples out there that don't have boundaries, I think you may have seen this happen in your marriage. I know Amy and I have early on as well too, as to where, like I said earlier, one spouse does something and doesn't think they're doing anything wrong, and the other spouse gets really hurt and offended. And I'm like, why did that hurt or offend you? Because it did, because of this. And so I think that's another reason why instead of just dismissing, oh, we don't need boundaries in our relationship, I think you should talk about like your financial boundaries, like how much money is it okay to spend without permission, right? And kind of both come to agreement, or the opposite sex, or different things like that. And I again, I really believe that talking about these things, and then you just know that, hey, we've agreed we're going to do this or not do this. And then there's no gray area. You don't even have to worry about getting into the gray area, or, oh, if I do this, is this going to hurt my wife? I really don't know or not, or vice versa.
Right.
So,
Right.
for
Yeah, that's
couples
valuable.
out there that are, maybe haven't set boundaries, and I think there's a lot of them that haven't.
Right.
What can they do? I mean, what's a good approach to approach this and start,
Sure.
being able to easily discuss with their spouse and start setting these boundaries?
Yes. Like, I mean, maybe someone's been married like 8, 10, whatever years, 2 years, whatever it is. And they're like, we've never discussed boundaries. What's the best way to go about it? And then
Yeah,
tell us like, what are like 5 boundaries that people should like jump into talking about like right
that.
now?
Yeah, I think one of the key components, if I were, just sit down as in my own marriage or whatever, and this brand new concept, I think one of the first things I would do is, I mean, first let's get in tune with our vision, like what we want, what are we trying to do with setting boundaries. Whenever you're thinking forward of what you're creating, that's going to produce much more value than looking back. I'm
Yeah.
not saying don't look back. Like you might need to go, hey, we need to get away from that, and we're getting away to that to get to this, but get that clarity. We need no more of that. Don't end there. We also want
Right.
that. Cool. You both know what that looks like. Then the skill I would say that you like both want to start to do is you want to, I call it connecting the dots. So I'm going to share what is important to me that I need to feel safe. That's the boundary that helps me feel safe, where I can give you love, I can give you trust, I can be intimate with you. If this boundary is not happening, I'm affected, our connection's affected, our trust, our safety, our intimacy. But I need to help my spouse understand that. When I just say, here's my boundary, it's like, wow, how am I ever going to remember that? Because I don't have that need. And every time I, go in the kitchen, I'm not going to think I can't, I don't know, I'm making up something
Yeah.
silly. I can't do this thing, right?
Mhm.
And so when you tie the dot or you connect the dots emotionally, people go, oh, okay, I understand why this is in place. It doesn't hurt me where I feel it. It hurts our marriage later. And so, for example, let's say, take turns or whatever, right? This isn't a negotiation. This is a team thing.
Mhm.
What are we doing to keep us safe, to connect? You go first, wife, right? She goes, to help me feel safe and to help me feel close. When show up on time after work, or at the very least, you call and text me that you're going to be late, like that helps me feel safe. That boundary, right? It's not a control you, it's a this helps me feel safe thing. It eases me so I don't go into anxiety. I don't worry that, you're cheating on me. I don't worry that I don't matter. I know that you matter even if you're not home on time.
Yeah.
It's the I matter piece. That's the connect the dots. And a husband goes, "Oh, cool. I can do that. I can let you know when I'm going to be late. I can try really hard to be on time." And then he's got that in his like care repertoire, right?
Yeah.
Of how do I love my wife? If he doesn't think it matters to her, he's not being mean. He just doesn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if she comes and says, "Hey, you can't be late from work anymore," and she's all, upset or whatever, he's going to react more to her emotion of being upset, and he's going to, let's say he even keeps it. He's keeping it from fear. I don't want my wife to be mad at me, instead of love. I'm
Yeah.
keeping this because I
Yeah.
love her. That's an important distinction that I try to help couples get to. we can do a lot of marriage from fear that leaves us in fear. We can do those same things from understanding and love, which the end result is it's totally different, right?
Totally.
Yeah,
Thoughts on any of that, and I can add a few more pieces, but does that make sense so far?
I think it's
absolutely.
great. Yeah. So, what would you say would be like the five things that you feel like couples should like sit down? Like, do you feel
Sure.
like it's boundaries with the opposite sex? Do you feel like
Sure.
it's boundaries about what people watch,
Sure.
phone
I
use?
mean, what are the
Like,
typically the problems that you're
yeah,
seeing when couples come to
Yep.
you? Whereas if they would have set boundaries, they
probably wouldn't be there.
probably
Yeah.
wouldn't be there. Yeah,
High level typically is, let's call it time and attention, or right, how you use your energy. And so you're exactly right. Like people have different needs, wants, and truthfully, we're distracted a lot. We're
Yeah.
addicted to dopamine, right? Like so oftentimes we're just mindlessly going through life, not aware. And so, right, those are kind of high level. How do you use your time? How do you bring your attention to the relationship, the family? And then I would break that down into like what helps us feel, emotional connectedness. There's a boundary conversation here of the don'ts. There's a boundary conversation of the do's. These are the helpful things. So I would do emotional. I really encourage couples to do spiritual.
yeah,
It doesn't have to be religious, but like that's a deeper bond, kind of that soul concept. I do think around sexuality for sure is an important component. This can be in the bedroom stuff. This
Mhm.
can be out of the house stuff, like you mentioned. Like I remember early in my career, my wife didn't even require this based on like her own needs. I just let her know. I said, I'm not gonna work one on one with women in certain scenarios. Like if I'm seeing a couple and it's a one off, and but I knew that I wanted to protect our marriage from anything that could potentially harm it. And that wasn't an imposed thing for her fear. It was a safety thing because I care, right?
yeah,
I
Right.
think if people can take that proactive approach, I've seen that be really valuable. Like, so Nick and Amy, you're having this conversation, and Nick, you just know your wife because you love her, and you go, "Hey, I was thinking maybe I can do this, or maybe we should do this. So would that be helpful for you?" And maybe something, Amy, you're not even super aware of, but you're like, "Oh my goodness, yes."
Mhm.
That is a very like strengthening activity of the bond. And I'll just share this. I mean, I've worked like hundreds and hundreds of people, and so often people don't know what they need to feel safe or connected.
yeah,
You often know each other better than the other if you're observant. So let me go back to the kind of the steps, right? Or the areas. So emotional, spiritual, sexual. I do think there's a lot of importance on like extended family, and friendships is what I'd put in there, and then financial. I think are the those main core areas. Um, there's two things happening simultaneously when we look at marital needs. I will say one part is kind of let's call it the human part. These are like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the lower level. It's like shelter, right? We need
hmm,
food, we need these types of base level things. And truthfully, strangely, that threshold is often different for men and women, depending on the scenario, because in certain marital situations, a woman's far more dependent or vulnerable. And so a lot of times men are really focused on, let's call it the relational intimacy needs. And a lot of times women they can't really get there unless like that baseline anxiety of fear is reduced, right? And so I'm talking kind of the human needs and then the
Mhm.
connection kind of spiritual needs. Both of those need to happen. So I see situations where it's like, well, we're not going to have deeper, connection and sexual intimacy until these are like working consistently. And oftentimes you have both needing the opposite at the same time.
yeah,
And so if couples can come to these five dialogues and even connect the dots, like, okay, I know you need financial safety. I can really focus on that. Part of what helps me with financial safety is for me to know that I'm loved and respected through you verbalizing it, or you put your hand on my head, or whatever your thing is, right? Now couples are getting a full picture of how it all works together for that core desire that we call, ultimate intimacy. Um, and so if I'm sitting down, as a couple, I'm going to go through those ones. I would say start with the least problematic. get some momentum, right?
Yeah,
Get
Yeah,
some
I like
like,
I
that.
agree.
hey, we're working together, we're doing this thing. Like
Mhm.
we're using these skills and the easier
This
ones,
is easy. Yeah.
and we can use them better, right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think if couples come together and they just recognize like, yes, we want baseline safety, we also want high level connection. Let's have this boundary conversation to do both.
Mhm.
That's where I see couples come out and truthfully, like, I do these, we call them renewals, like a little bit longer 2 day things. I see couples come out of that where they both have like this clear map from each other. I help them create it or
Hmm.
whatever, but they co-create the path forward and they know here's the success path. If these things happen, we're going to have to navigate the emotion and whatever comes with that. And then they're both going forward protecting kind of this oftentimes this reconnection. And I think there's value in seeing connection, especially where a couple's been disconnected and a lot of pain. Like I often talk about it like a new sprouting tree. It's
Mhm.
like this is fragile. It might need more to protect it now
Right.
versus as it grows strong. If you think of a big, oak tree, it's pretty strong. It can handle a lot. And that's how relationships can become is, it's not violate the boundaries,
Mhm.
but it's like,
Yeah.
hey, because of this and the bond we have and the safety we've created and we've matured this marriage, um, we don't feel as threatened by the wind and the rain and the whatever.
That
Yeah.
is a great analogy because I feel like after almost 24 years of marriage for us, we were probably little branches at the beginning, didn't quite know what was going to be blown at us. We
For
never,
sure.
I think if we would have set some bigger financial boundaries, in-law boundaries, some of those kind of things from like day one, that probably would
Mhm.
have changed a lot of stuff we went through. Yeah, we made it through it and we grew stronger, but now I do feel like there's a safety net that we have because we're stronger.
Right.
Maybe it's because we learned a lot, we grew a lot, we learned how to communicate, we knew how to set. I mean, the more things that were thrown at us, the more we started to throw out boundaries and agree on stuff because we're
Yeah.
like, we want to keep this tree strong, right? So I
Yeah.
love that you said that. Just a few, like just to add to your categories, I think it's really important to send boundaries around phones. I think it's important to set boundaries around how you talk to each other,
Sure.
how you spend your evenings and your date nights. When we set, I never really thought of it as a boundary. It was more just a goal to do a weekly date night for us. But that I feel like that has become such a protection to our marriage.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
like not you being on your phones on date night. I mean,
Yeah.
unless we've talked about it. I also feel like something that we've set in our marriage, which wasn't necessarily, I don't think I considered it a boundary, but I do now, is we don't really schedule anything big without someone else knowing. Like we're really good at communicating about what's going on in our week, what's happening on Saturday, what Sunday dinner looks like as a family, like all the different what the kids are involved in. I asked Nick, like talk to him before I sign my kids up for something
Hmm.
around financial before now that we've gone through financial stuff big time,
Hmm.
financial boundaries, that certain amount of money that you spend. We were talking to a sweet couple this weekend. You could tell it was still really raw that they didn't have like an amount that the other person would spend. And
Right.
there were some feelings there. And so I feel like there's just in all those areas that you mentioned, it's just really, really important. And maybe we need to like put together a little like sheet
Yeah.
help couple have these
Yeah.
communications, but just
Yeah.
like, hey, do we need to add something in this area? Do you feel like we need it? And if your spouse says, yes, I feel like this area is
Hmm.
either maybe kind of controversial or I've been hurt in this area, then it
Right.
should be important to you too. Because if it's
Love
important
that.
to your spouse, it should be
Yeah.
important to you, right? And we're talking about love. Like this creates a strong love.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. A lot of, I mean, right, I kind of talked high level, time and attention. Phone is one
Big.
of the biggest in tech, right? And then so often people feel like their spouse is putting other relationships ahead of them,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So that
Yeah.
can be work, that can be going to the gym, that can be
Mhm.
friendships, whatever,
Like
not
you said,
necessarily bad
in-laws.
things. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so right? It doesn't need to be endless, we're always together all the time. Like if that's your
Right.
need, there's probably some insecurity stuff that allows you each to have some independence. but I think to your point, I really like what you said. Like maybe we do put down like here's some starting point conversations. The phone thing, I will tell you, in my undergraduate, I had a class where we started like what's going to be the net effect of social media. It was
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
early,
Mhm.
and we are hypothesizing what will but then what was interesting is a few years later I went into my master's program, and now we had some live data, right? Facebook was pretty new, all this stuff, and the effect was bigger than I think anybody
Oh,
comprehended. The
100%.
ease at being distracted from your partner,
Mhm.
like these weren't around when, right, when we first were getting married. Like it wasn't a computer in
Yeah.
your pocket, and there
Nope.
wasn't endless information. There was a phone with a camera, right?
Yeah.
Right.
A cool
We didn't
snake
even have
game or
Yeah.
that.
whatever. But right here we are, 20 whatever years later, and the phone, the games, the video games, the porn, like all this stuff is tech is consistently feeling like a priority over a spouse, right? It's not uncommon for me to have a couple come in and it's like my spouse turns to their phone first thing. I'm right there, living, breathing, loving them, and they
Yep.
want to see something they don't even know what's going to be there. It's an email. Who knows what email? Who knows what social media? That's the dopamine thing. And so I think when we look at a loving, healthy marriage, we don't let the brain and its dopamine desires rule. We choose our spouse first, even if we don't get that hit of love necessarily. And so I think, right, this is for every couple. It's coming to this place of we can have something amazing. It's probably not going to just happen to us. We're going to have to
We got to
create
build
it
it.
and
Right.
protect it, right? Yeah. And so
Yep.
I love, Amy, what you're saying. This action of setting boundaries, that's a proactive step. That's a building step of building this type of marriage. And then once it's in place, now you have this protection.
Mhm.
And so, right, it's you both know this. It's an ongoing, we're consistently pouring into our marriage and we're consistently protecting it. If both are
Yep.
happening, you get to enjoy marriage, right? And have that deep connection. So
It's
that's cool.
ongoing. It's
Yeah.
ongoing. It's ongoing. We talk about these things all the time because we talk about it in our marriage all the time. We talk about this all the time.
Yes, we do.
So, anyways, we close this one out, but I thank you. That was amazing. I think it's really
You
important.
guys
We're
did
talking
great.
about love, and love is an action word. We always say that. So
Yeah.
protect your marriage.
So, for all of you out there that maybe don't have boundaries, sit down, talk to your spouse, see what you could do to protect your marriage and build that intimacy and that connection in your relationship. Like Austin said, start out with the small things, build up to maybe the bigger things, and we hope it can be something that benefits you greatly because it certainly has our marriage. So, Austin, we appreciate you being
Thank
on
you.
with us, and everyone out there listening. Until next time, we hope all of you find ultimate intimacy in your relationship.